Hi there, I'm Michael Price, and this is a video version of a post I wrote for my Psychology Today blog, From Darwin to Eternity. You can see the original written version at that site, or to see some of my other work, you can visit my personal page at Brunel University, London. So today I'll talk about the one explanation I know of for how life could have some natural transcendent purpose. Some purpose, that is, above and beyond the interests of any individual or group. Now, this is a very speculative idea, and I won't try and convince you it's true. I'll just invite you to join me on a thought experiment about it. Hopefully, I will be able to convince you that this idea is at least compelling, and that if it were true, there would be important implications for human morality and destiny. Before I begin, let me clarify one thing. I'm going to talk a lot about natural selection, and you're probably already pretty familiar with how natural selection works in biology. Basically, it works by designing organisms for reproduction. Individuals who have traits that confer a reproductive advantage, otherwise known as adaptations, they have more offspring. So populations come to be dominated by individuals who have inherited these adaptations. Now, what you may not know is that natural selection can actually be generalized and applied to many different natural domains. This is an approach known as universal Darwinism. Natural selection has even been applied to the most fundamental domain there is, the cosmological domain. Theories of cosmological natural selection assume that universes can reproduce like organisms and can become designed for reproduction by a process of cosmological selection, just like organisms are designed by biological selection. Cosmological natural selection may sound like a complicated or strange idea, but it's actually pretty simple and well known within cosmology. I'll provide a bit more detail about it later, but for now I just wanted to give a heads up that natural selection applied at both the biological and cosmological levels will be central to the explanation that I'll propose about life's transcendent purpose. So let me ask you, could human existence have some kind of transcendent purpose? Now, if you believe in the supernatural, you'd probably answer yes. But if your worldview is entirely naturalistic, you'd probably say no. That's because there's no widely accepted explanation for how life could have such purpose. However, I'll explain here why adaptationist evolutionary theory actually does suggest one way transcendent natural purpose might exist. Now, as an evolutionary psychologist, I've always been fascinated by the most fundamental explanations for behavior that science has to offer. And maybe the most important thing I've learned about Darwinian theory is that natural selection is the one and only natural process known to science that can generate purpose. It does so by generating function, functional adaptations that solve problems related to survival and reproduction. The human eye is a good example. Now, the function or purpose of the eye is to see. And note that the eye has a highly complex, non-random design. This improbable complexity is the hallmark of natural selection. All evolved adaptations exhibit it to some degree. And this complexity is often assessed in terms of function. To what extent does some trait seem designed to serve some specific function, just like the eye seems designed to see? Functional traits display high improbable complexity. And this complexity is actually how we know that a trait is, in fact, an adaptation, as opposed to being just some random byproduct of evolution. Traits that are byproducts, in contrast, are non-functional, and so they tend to be much simpler. Your belly button, for instance, is just the scar left behind by your umbilical cord. Now here, the umbilical cord is shown in cross-section. Now, the umbilical cord is an adaptation, but the navel is just its byproduct. The cord is complex, the navel is simple. And we can distill this adaptationist logic into a simple rule. More improbable complexity equals more probably an adaptation. So the more improbable complexity a trait displays, the more likely it is to be an adaptation, not just some random evolutionary byproduct, but a mechanism with some evolved purpose. Now, as I noted in my introduction, the theory of natural selection has also been applied at the cosmological level. Theories of cosmological natural selection allow us to address the question, could the universe itself possess any purposeful traits? And the answer to this question is yes, according to Lee Smolin, a well-known theoretical physicist of the Perimeter Institute of Theoretical Physics in Ontario, Canada. Smolin's theory of cosmological natural selection builds on ideas that are by now widely accepted among many influential cosmologists, especially that we live in a multiverse. Our universe, that is just one of many in a vast population of universes, in which new universes are constantly being generated. Smolin notes that universe designs that were better at reproducing themselves would achieve greater representation in the multiverse, and he proposes that black holes are the mechanism by which universes reproduce themselves. Universes, therefore, are selected to contain as many black holes as possible. Black holes are an adaptation, and their purpose is to enable universe reproduction. So where do human beings fit into this scenario? Well, they serve no purpose whatsoever. From Smolin's perspective, the evolution of intelligent life is simply an accidental byproduct of universes being selected for black hole production. Smolin's theory is compelling in some respects. However, in its application of adaptationist logic, it breaks that key rule that I mentioned earlier. If we're trying to identify the aspects of the universe that are most likely to be adaptations, we should be looking for its most improbably complex aspects. And the most improbably complex aspect of our universe is not black holes. It is, in fact, intelligent life. A black hole is essentially just an outcome of gravity. It's a region of space-time where gravity's pull is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. Living creatures, in contrast, are generally regarded as the most improbably complex known entities in the universe. And this is a point which is, interestingly, it's emphasized strongly by Smolin himself. Now, when I say that intelligent life is our universe's most improbably complex trait, I'm referring to humanity itself, which is the most improbably complex species of all, thanks to its uniquely sophisticated brain. But I also mean all the highly specific cosmological conditions that had to be met so that life was able to evolve on Earth. All the laws and parameters of physics that cosmologists say seem so fine-tuned to allow for the emergence of life. So what could it mean to propose that intelligent life is an adaptation for universe reproduction? Well, it would mean that the purpose of life is to develop the expertise that will eventually enable intelligent beings to create new universes, new cosmic habitats for themselves. And in the process of generating new universes, life would simultaneously be enabling the universe to reproduce. This idea is called cosmological natural selection with intelligence, or CNSI. And I published a paper about it in the journal Complexity in 2017. Now, it may sound like science fiction to propose that life's transcendent purpose is to create new universes. And it is, indeed, a highly speculative and in some ways counterintuitive idea. Nevertheless, it's where the logic leads, if you apply the adaptationist principle that the most improbably complex traits are most likely to be adaptations. So the theory of CNSI is simply the logical destination that you'll reach after you've applied adaptationism to the domain of cosmological evolution. So what does CNSI suggest about the future of humanity? Well, according to CNSI, intelligent life is the universe's reproductive system, and contemporary humans represent a developmental stage of this system. So at our present stage of biocultural evolution, we humans are like the reproductive system of a child that is not yet physically able to reproduce. We cannot yet create new universes because we don't yet possess the ability to do so. And from this perspective, human biocultural evolution is a developmental subroutine of cosmological evolution. As life evolves, it should continually be acquiring more and more of the expertise that will eventually enable it to generate new universes. The most important kinds of expertise required for this goal will be scientific and social. Scientific progress will be vital because if future humans are going to create new universes, maybe by building structures resembling intelligently designed black holes, they'll require knowledge and technology far more advanced than what we currently possess. And social progress will be equally key, because scientific progress and large-scale scientific efforts don't occur in a vacuum, and they don't happen in societies that are chaotic, fragmented, and unstable. They require a social foundation that is stable, cooperative, humane, and economically productive. So it's certainly speculative, and it may seem overly optimistic to suggest that humanity is on its way to acquiring the scientific and social expertise that will one day enable it to create new universes. But if you think about the progress that the human lineage has already made over millions of years of biocultural evolution, this prospect starts to seem more realistic. So as books by people like Robert Wright and Steven Pinker and Ray Kurzweil have shown, the trajectory of human biocultural evolution has long been in the direction of increasing technological sophistication, cooperativeness, and nonviolence. And not only are we continuing to make this progress today, we're making it at an ever-accelerating pace. So CNSI takes an optimistic view about the future of humanity, because it suggests that intelligent life will ultimately succeed in fulfilling this function of universe reproduction. And this is true for the same reason you'd expect any adaptation to succeed. For the same reason you'd expect an eye to actually see, for example, or for a child's reproductive system to eventually be able to create new life. And that doesn't mean our species' success is guaranteed. No outcome in the universe can be 100% guaranteed because the universe is probabilistic and not deterministic. And that's just a basic implication of quantum mechanics. Nevertheless, if CNSI were true, then we could justifiably expect that our species' probability of success would be high. We could expect that the end is unlikely to be nigh, because human biocultural evolution will continue to make progress for a long, long time. Now, because CNSI predicts that human scientific and social progress will continue into the far future, it also predicts the continuous ascendancy of the cultural values which make this progress possible. Okay, these are values associated with knowledge acquisition and cooperation, essentially the values that are already emphasized by humanist-type organizations. These progressive values will always be in conflict with their regressive opposites, the forces of ignorance and hate. But CNSI predicts that these progressive values will always prevail in the long term, no matter how bleak their prospects may seem at any given time. So there are some loud voices in the world right now advocating on behalf of ignorance and hate, but CNSI suggests not just that these voices are on the wrong side of history, but that they will also be on the losing side of human destiny. So in conclusion, let me emphasize again that CNSI is highly speculative, and my goal here is not to argue that it's correct. And even if we considered that it could be correct, this would raise a whole lot of new questions about how the process of CNSI might actually work. So in its current form, CNSI is just like a book with many pages or chapters missing. But despite this incompleteness, I think there's already enough to the idea to make it compelling, especially in three aspects. And I'll leave you with these three. First, Darwinian selection is the only known natural process that can create purpose. So CNSI is the only explanation for how life could, in principle, have a natural transcendent purpose. Two, in applying Darwinian theory to the cosmological domain, as Lee Smolin does, we should consider the universe's most improbably complex trait, which is intelligent life, as the trait most likely to be an adaptation. And three, if CNSI were correct, this would have important implications for human morality and destiny. So, thank you very much for coming along on this thought experiment, and I hope I've succeeded at least in provoking your curiosity about CNSI. So thanks again, and see you soon. Bye-bye.